these thugs should all be investigated and put in prison. It has come out, you see, that 160 members of the MAGA community were being spied upon by Jack Smith and his cronies. That is what the FBI is reporting. They have dug it up through their investigation. Arctic Frost, as it is known, Bongino Cash, they're all over this. And you see a story there, the headline from Just the News, more than 160 Republicans potentially investigated in FBI's Arctic Frost probe, according to new House documents that apparently the FBI has released. So the president's like, okay, prison time. A disgrace to humanity, he writes. Deranged Jack Smith is a criminal. So there, he's over in South Korea having a party. They're giving him a crown and everything, which is kind of funny and ironic, right? Given the No Kings protests. I think he likes the crown. It's beautiful. Gold and everything. Anyway, a lovely gift. It's not actually his. It will go to, the museum or whatever at the White House or the library, but he's getting a crown. And he's over there, and he manages to send out this, which just sends everyone right into a tizzy. These thugs should be investigated and put in prison. A disgrace to humanity. Who would agree with that besides myself? Jason Chaffetz, a former colleague of mine over at Fox, and also he's the former congressman from Utah. Let's go to him.
But then you got to remember.
Oh, we're having a little stickiness today.
But then you got to remember that it was the Obama administration that had allegations of spying on, the media, the Associated Press, James Rosen, others remember what happened in the Senate under them. Then you have Biden come along. Now you've got what Jack Smith is doing here in his allegations, and the way he went after Donald Trump, with bringing cameras in tow, guns ablazing into Mar-a-Lago to go through Melania Trump's unmentionables door. Seriously? This is so out of control. There needs to be accountability.
Yeah, there needs to be accountability. I'm sorry. And you know what Jason brings up that's super important? Who it started with. Okay, because that was Obama. Barack Obama went after my friend James Rosen, who at the time was a Fox News correspondent. And he also went after Cheryl Atkinson, who's another former colleague of mine. Gosh, I've been around, all right, who was at CBS News. Cheryl Atkinson was furious because she was accusing them of breaking into her computer. So this was all coming out, all right? So Obama had his thing, and he did not like journalists who were not carrying the water for him. He had that guy, Ben Rhodes, remember? And Ben Rhodes talked a lot about the sort of machine where, things would ricochet off of one another, and you could just keep having this, game of telephone where you call somebody and you say, I'm hearing this. And then that person would say, well, I'm hearing this. And then you put it out there to somebody else. I'm hearing this. And before you know it, that's the narrative. That's how, they play dirty in DC. And if you didn't play that game, like Cheryl or at that time he was a Fox reporter, if you didn't play that game like Rosen or Atkinson, then you were part of the problem, and then they started spying on you. And then you had Lois, right? Over at the IRS, who wanted to target any group that was associated with the Tea movement. Think of what we went through, okay? I remember all this. I remember it all vividly. And then you fast forward to, gosh darn it, Donald Trump winning the thing over Hillary. How could that be? I mean, she was supposed to break the glass ceiling and all that, right? They spent a lot of money on that glass ceiling in New York City. It was going to be a big party. How could this be? I could have told you. I mean, again, get outside of your bubble, people. Go out into the rest of the country and see how the rest of America feels. It was pretty obvious to me. I kept saying, don't count him out, don't count him out, don't count him out. There's a real good chance he could win this whole thing. I was right, okay? So they couldn't believe it. And then you look forward to what Tulsi's shown us. If you fast forward to December of 2016, what were they doing? They were meeting in Obama's office, and they were making a decision to twist the narrative. They knew that Russia had no effect on anything, but they didn't want to say that anymore. So the narrative was twisted and manipulated so that they could then have Jimmy Carter come out and say, well, I don't consider him a legitimate president because the Russians interfered with our election. I mean, is that not whacked out or what? I mean, the dossier, which was opposition research, the way James Comey called his buddy, the Columbia law professor, who was also a paid person for the FBI, gun for hire at the FBI, that Comey then used to get his side of the story because he wanted a special investigation and he wanted a special prosecutor to get that side of the story out into the media. It's wild and it's wrong. All right, we've been through this analogy before. What happens at the end of the Little League game? You know, they all shake hands and everything's fine, right? Because one team loses, one team wins, and the losers need to make do. You don't try and derail the winners as they go all the way to the state championships, right? Just because your team didn't win. But that's not the game that Barack Obama played. No, he was in a totally different mode. And so he's out there doing what? You know, if you listen to this guy, and he's a smart reporter, John Solomon, they were literally creating an enemies list. It's now been revealed from the FBI they had 160 people on this thing, so 8 sitting U.S. senators, 8 congressperson, and apparently you round it out with another 160 members of the MAGA community, hope I'm not on there, that were targeted.
What were they doing? They were mapping the MAGA movement with every piece of data they could. It was basically creating an enemies list.
An enemies list. How do you like that? And this is the guy that started it all. Okay, T-Bolt. This is the guy that everybody's wondering more about. He has since resigned from the FBI, in part because Republicans were like, buddy, I mean, what the heck were you doing? You were supposed to be investigating the Hunter Biden laptop. And that was like completely getting suppressed, so suppressed, right? You know, oh, we had 51 ex-spooks trying to tell you that there was nothing to see here. Yeah, right. Okay, so this guy, Timothy T-Bolt, is now really being questioned, I would say, and needs to be questioned, probably brought in for questioning before various committees, because he was the one who was running this campaign. And what we learned was he had somehow decided, and this could be worse, very seriously, this may be the biggest political scandal in history, worse than Watergate, anything you can imagine. Nobody in the mainstream media is covering this. But Timothy T-Bolt was, according to Chuck Grassley, and the metadata that's been gathered off of the documents that he was using, he was doing what they call something called self-approval. So he was going through and like initiating these investigations, and you need to have various warrants, etc. We don't know if he had that or not, but like what's really weird is that the FBI has something called a no self-approval rule, which they call code 3523. And because there's no self-approval, it means that if you're the one that initiates this, somebody else has to sign off on it. But in this case, Timothy T-Bolt, he was doing all the signing off. He was doing all the initiation and all the signing off on. And so there was no sort of checks and balances going on, which is why perhaps this led to 8 sitting U.S. Republican senators, 1 congressperson, Republican of course, and another 160 members of MAGA allegedly being spied upon. Now they want us to be really careful with how we use the word spied upon, because we can't say they were tapping the phones. No, not allowed. Can't say wiretapping. They were, how did they describe it? They were tolling the phones. Oh yes, that's the word they used, tolling the phones. So the distinction is they were basically gathering all the metadata, right? I mean, I think Snowden talked about this ages ago. They were getting all the metadata they could. They basically were like, okay, you were talking to this person, and how long were you talking to them for? And where was your location? And where was that person's location? And so as a result, they have something like, 30 million phone records. Outrageous, crazy, like this should not be happening. Again, the no self-approval rule would have prevented it under any other normal situation. But I'm guessing Obama didn't play by the rules. And it doesn't seem like Joe Biden really played by the rules either. I mean, I don't even know if he knew what the rules were, whether anybody was doing anything. I mean, that would be a great defense for him, right? Because he's obviously clueless on a number of things. The thing is that you can't actually do what they were doing without getting the appropriate warrants. So there's the Wiretap Act, there's the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, there's state privacy, eavesdropping laws. Like you can't actually do this. So they were going after 160 members. I'm assuming some private private citizens. I do believe Steve Bannon is in that group. If you go to the Bees, you see a big Steve Bannon. So he was a target of theirs. They were going after anyone that had contact with the Trump White House. And that's really disturbing and really scary. But that is apparently the world in which we live. And I also would just say, what were they doing with the data? Apparently, they were gathering this data like way after the fact. Way after it was allegedly, some kind of investigation into January 6th. And then when the January 6th committee was dissolved, they kept on gathering the data. Now, why would they keep gathering the data? Apparently, they wanted to then hand that over to the FBI to have like a whole new round of going after Republicans when Donald Trump decided he was going to run for office again. I guess they really didn't want him finding any of this out, now did they?
Plot gets stopped by the American people in December 2022 because Americans choose Republicans, Republicans come in, the Democrats get thrown out of the House. A year later, when Adam Kinzinger is no longer a member of the committee, he's no longer a member of the House. He no longer has protection of the speech and debate clause. He's calling up the FBI and trying to give them these records, which, by the way, the FBI would never have been able to get this large a swath of records. It's just too broad a request, right? There wouldn't be a legitimate investigative need for that many records. He's trying to say, hey, I don't know, but let's just get them to you guys. He's making that call in December of 2023, 4 years after most of the cases have already been brought in January 6th. Why is he doing that? He's not doing it for some legislative purpose. He's not doing it for some criminal purpose because J6 is mostly solved by that point. He's doing it to try to give the FBI one more piece of weaponry to stop Donald Trump from winning the presidency in 24. That's what is so concerning. It's a civil liberties violation that then gets politically weaponized by offering it to the FBI.
Messed up. Like really, 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 really messed up. And so there are a lot of people out there right now that, this is retribution. We shouldn't be doing this. How dare he? This is not what the country's about. But I would just say, do you think the country was about what Obama did? Or what Biden did? We need to make sure that this never happens again to anyone, okay? And so if it means going back in time, then I'm sorry. I mean, the irony is completely lost on one Whoopi Goldberg who said this moments ago. Listen to the beginning of this clip. It's priceless. Okay, we get the tech department not cooperating with me here today. What could be going on? Oh, well, I'll just sum it up. So Whoopi Goldberg went on her show and she said, I don't know why we have to go back and look at all this stuff, like the past. Like we should be focused on the shutdown. We should be focused on this. We should be focused on that. And it's like, no, Whoopi. Like the irony of this is, what do you think? What do you think Biden did for 4 whole years? What do you think Arctic frost was about but going back and trying to go after the other side the entire time? It is really, really bad. But I tell you this, you know what? They got it coming. And there's going to be some heads that roll. I promise you that. I really do. I promise you that.